Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we're going to take a look at another novelty watercolor palette. That should be the name of this channel, Lindsay Reviews Novelty Watercolor Palettes. This one's by Artify, and you may remember a couple months ago I reviewed their alcohol markers, which I really liked, and they also sent me this to review if I wanted to. And it kind of sat on my shelf for a while, so I was like, oh, I don't know, another novelty watercolor palette. But I was going through my stack of review products and I saw this and I thought, you know, I'm going to give it a go. I'm gonna play with it and see what I think. And this set comes in a box, and there's not really a lot of information on this other than made in China. It tells you 58 colors. It says it is sunproof, no fading colors, easy to blend and quick to dry. Transparent, fabulous, yada yada yada. There's not that much real information though. There's no pigment information or anything like that. You get a pretty decent watercolor brush here. I would say it's kind of a medium to large size tip, and like all water brushes, you unscrew it the reverse way. So I know a lot of people get a water brush for the first time and they don't know how to open it up. So you unscrew it and you fill it with water. And a tip that I have, I fill them with these little bottles, these little squeeze bottles, and what these are they are little flavor enhancer bottles that I have washed, and you can just if you have these, this was a Kool-Aid one, I think. You want to cut the label off, then you grab it firmly and twist, and that will pop right off, and then you can clean it out really well. And you might need to soak it with like dish soap for a while, and then you just fill it up with water and you pop that top right back on, and then it's perfect for filling up your bottle because you just hold that right up to the novel and give it a squeeze. And I actually throw these in my bag when I am going to be travel painting and using a water brush. So just save those. I always save them. I have a bunch of them because they're super handy to have. And there you have it. That's how you fill the water brush. You probably already know how to do that though. Alright, so let's open this up and take a look and see what we have here. So this is similar to other novelty watercolor palettes where we have these little strips of color. And a lot of times we see these in a fan orientation. This one's a little weird. I have reviewed another set that was like this before, and the thing that I thought was kind of unique about this one is it's not, or it doesn't seem to be a huge thing, but to me it kind of is, and it's the fact that it's white. And it's a lot easier to identify your colors when the palette's white than when the palette's black. For instance, this is the first fan palette I ever bought. This was the Mead, and I got it when they first came out. And these are the exact same paints. I went on the Amazon listing and even looked at the color numbers, same exact color numbering system. I think all of these fan palettes are made by the Superior company and just private labeled from different for different other manufacturers or different other stores. I think they're all manufactured by Superior, and that's my opinion. I mean, I don't work for these companies, I don't know, but that's what I would assume, since they all seem to use the same color numbering systems and all the swatches match if you paint them out. But it's a lot harder to identify these colors on this black strip than it is on the white strip. Even though the paints are still transparent, so they don't show up, especially those darker colors, it's hard to tell. It's slightly easier to tell when they're against white than when they're against black. So that's one thing they have going for them. The other thing that's going for them is that you can pull out the pans and you can rearrange them. Not only that, but if you use up a color, you have a little bit more depth here in this well than you would, say, in one of these fan palettes, because these blades are really, really skinny versus the thickness of the blades there, because they use the removable pans, so you actually could put more in there. Or you could, when these run out, you could use these little pans and you could make yourself an alcohol ink palette. You could squeeze alcohol ink in all the wells, let them dry, and then take a water brush full of rubbing alcohol and use that to paint with. So it's another option for this palette, because that's when I'm looking at something like this, especially something that has so much plastic. I think, okay, is this something you would use up and throw away, or is this something that you would actually want to use up so you could have the palette for another purpose? And I think that's the situation here. This one folds really flat. I had used another one that I couldn't get to lay down really flat on the table, so that's nice. And the color selection is actually really pretty, and I'm always a little I always cringe a little bit at the pastels. I'm like, oh, are they going to be a pain? Are they going to be chalky? Are they just going to sit there like a bump in a log when I try to paint them? And you're going to find in one of the examples that I show you that actually the pastels are worthwhile in here. I like the pastels here better than the Primo Marketing pastels or the Mungio pastels. These just seem to flow a little bit better. So when you're getting a novelty palette like this, any of the fan palettes, anything that is unusual and you really need to identify the colors because you have, you know, darker colors, it's hard to see what they really are. I recommend you swatch them out in the manner that they appear. So what I probably would end up doing is just scoring and folding this and sticking it right in the box with it if I want to keep it in that box. But you want to swatch these out in order so that when you are looking and you're painting, you can kind of say, okay, I want ultramarine, so I'm gonna go 4 down in this row and find the color that I want. That just will help you make sure that you have the right colors. And you know what? Now that I'm looking at that, I wonder if I swatched that color twice. I'll have to go back to that. I'll have to look at it. You know what though? We can test the lifting. I've tested the lifting on these. I mean, I've reviewed so many fan palettes. You can go back and look at like the one I did here and really get a good idea of the paint. But I'm just wondering if I might have swatched that one twice. Oh, it lifts up really well, but they're also very transparent and I didn't have any trouble layering when I was doing my examples. So I just thought we'd just try that for fun. So I did put down some black marker lines before I painted my swatches, and they're all very transparent. You can see very little bits of haze over the yellows and reds, and those are the ones that look a lot brighter in the palette. One thing I noticed about the surface texture is that some of these colors started to get a little flaky, like the paint wanted to flake off. I haven't seen that in other palettes, so I don't know exactly what's going on there, but I'm also noticing it on this burnt umber. So maybe they've adjusted the amount of binder or something, because I am seeing little bits of flakiness on some of the pan surfaces. I think I noticed that in the Artsy Half Pan set of 24, which I think is also made by Superior. So and that's a recent palette, so they may have just slightly tweaked the formulation. These also do kind of seem like the same paint that's in it's definitely all the same as the half pans, and that's my opinion, but that's definitely what I observed. But they also seem very similar to like the Pretty Excellent half pans and the Artsy half pans. If you got paint already and you're just trying to see if it's similar to something you already have. So yes, on the pastels you can see a little bit of haze on the black, but you know, it's really not bad. I was expecting kind of like a big chalky mess, but it's not that bad. I think they're using mixing white, their Chinese white here. I think they're using a more transparent white so that you could actually add that to any of these colors and control the spread if you wanted to have more viscous paint and really water it down. That's what a white watercolor is actually for. It's not really for highlights. You can buy a titanium white that is more opaque, but your Chinese white is generally for helping you control the viscosity of your paint when you want to really make a pale color. And really, there's not a lot of opacity even in these this neon-y green and these pastel colors. So that's nice. That's a good sign. So let's look at some of the artwork that I did. Now this one I used hopefully the colors will register there. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. I think that might help the white balance. This was just kind of like a misty autumn sunset type of sky. And you can see a little bit of texture in the clouds there, which would have been the chalk or whatever they're using to opacify that or make that paint pastel. But it's not bad, and I got some really nice effects doing the sky like that. I didn't film this, but if you guys are interested in a tutorial, let me know in the comments below. They're very easy to work with. I would not mind just doing skies, pastel skies with this set, because they flow well enough wet into wet in the sky, but you can get but you also have a lot of control because of the viscosity of the pastel colored paint. Really fun to work with. I really enjoyed it. And then I did film a tutorial for this. This is just a little kind of like a rose motif. I wanted to see how the colors would spread. This is on cotton paper. This is on cotton paper. I just wanted to see how, you know, how it would go, how it would feel to paint with it. Very fun to paint with. This is the first thing I did, just doodling around on a scrap. I'm like, well, that can be a bookmark. And then I just doodle around in a little artist trading card just to see. Now, this is the piece I did in my sketchbook. This is just cellulose paper, and I just absolutely loved the flow I was getting and the bleeding between the colors. This is an Arteza sketchbook. I really liked it, and I like that so much. That's why I did the card on cotton watercolor paper, just to do that for a video, because I thought it was really fun and relaxing and pretty. Very, very nice paint to work with, just like all the other fan colors. I think the palette is pretty practical because you can refill it and you have the option of the deeper wells. and I recommend it. I think I've recommended all the different fan palettes because the colors are actually really good and they're not that expensive. Now, that said, prices on the fan palettes are all over the place. When I bought mine, it was like, I think it was around $20, and then like over the course of the next few months after I bought mine, this was a couple of years ago, the price just dropped and dropped and dropped, and I think they're probably down between like $12 and $15 now. And they've improved it by adding like mixing palettes and sometimes extra water brushes and whatnot. So this one is a little bit higher. This one's like around $26 at the time I'm filming. Now, of course, they may drop the price by the time this review goes up because I probably won't have put this review up for a couple of weeks. But the thing that I like is the white palette. I kind of wish it was a little more mixing area, but you know, if you decided that, hey, I never use pastel colors, so what I think I'll do is I'll take these out and I will use this for some extra mixing wells. You could totally do that. I feel like I'm going to break a nail. Maybe use your use the end of your, I better keep those in the right order so when I put them back my swatch will match. You could use the end of your aquarelle brush to get those out, and there you've got more mixing space. So if you've got colors you know you're not going to use, or some of these colors are very similar to one another, and I'll show you that too, because you might want to say, well, I don't really need 4 reds. I don't need, like, here you have a cool yellow, but then you've got like those two yellows are very similar. You might say, well, I could do without one of those yellows. I could do without a couple of those orangey reds. I could do without that red. I could do without one of those browns. You know, you could go through and you could cherry pick out some of these, put them in a baggie so that when you use up that yellow, you can replace it with another one, and then use the remaining spaces for some mixing areas. That's what I would recommend doing if you want to travel with this and you need some more mixing space. That way you don't have to bring another thing to mix with. Of course, there are so many colors you probably wouldn't need to mix if you didn't want to, but I feel like when you mix your colors, you get a much better look. So for the only colors I used for this was, I used this pink, I used that red, I used that teal, and I used that green. And that was it, so 4 colors. And for this, I used more. I used that pink, I used a little bit of that peach, I used those 2 blues, I used that green again. I love that green. That's your classic sap green, so you could even like pull that out and fill the whole well with sap green from a tube if you wanted to. I think I used that orange, that yellow, that kind of Prussian blue color. And, you know, I used more, but I didn't, you know, I still mixed on my palette, so I didn't end up with too many colors to make it discordant. I really like this. I mean, I was kind of thinking, when I first saw this, I was like, oh, another fan palette to review. But when I got it out and started working with it, and I saw how nice and flat it sat, I don't think I would take this out and about. This isn't what I would have for a travel palette unless I know wherever I was traveling to. Like if I know I was going to be on vacation, I'd have a place to sit, and I could set it on the table. I wouldn't want to carry watercolors like that. Just because I'm right-handed, I just think I would drip watercolor like on my lap if that's where I was holding my paper. This to me doesn't feel like a good travel option, and plus, you know, well, it does lock into place a lot better than another one that I had. So it's you know, if you want to, you can. If you paint on an easel, that might be handy, but people generally don't do watercolor on easels, so there's that ring on the back. I just wanted to show you that. Yeah. Like I said, it's a neat design. I like that everything is, all the pans and all the backing of the palette itself is white so that you can see your media. You can use it, reuse the palette, which I think if you're buying this, I would definitely have an intention to reuse the palette when you use it up. That said, man, it looks like you will use these up in no time, but it takes some work. I haven't used up any of my pans, and granted I have a lot of paint, so it's not like I'm solely relying on this for painting, but I painted on this every day on vacation for a week, and I mean, some colors have a dent, but barely, and I use this a lot. The first summer I got it, I was taking this out on the kayak, I was taking it on the front porch to sit while I painted. The screw has gotten a little loose. I should probably try to tighten that up because like my fans are quite a bit loose. Actually, once because it doesn't have a mixing area, that was my biggest complaint. That's the only mixing area now. These sets put a sponge in that spot, and they give you another blade to put out for mixing, which is really handy. But quality of the paint, yeah, I recommend it. So I would say if you're in the market for a palette like this, the paint's all the same. So look at the different formulations or layouts of the palettes and the color of the palettes and see what's going to be most useful to you and see what you like the look of best. So, I mean, the downside to this being a white palette is that it's going to get dirty. Like, I mean, you can see all that grime around that pan, right? You're not seeing that grime around the pan on the black palette because it's not going to show up. It's transparent paint and you get it on the black plastic, you don't see it. So this might look a little rough. I've used it, you know, I haven't used it that much. You saw the paintings I've done with it and I've already got, you know, grime everywhere. But it's up to you. There's something for everyone. There is a palette for every artist in the novelty palette space, I swear. Oh my gosh. Hope you enjoyed this review. I really enjoyed these more than I thought I would. I thought it was just, you know, I just like, okay, another fan palette. I even swatched it by eye with some of the ones I had in here. Very good matches. And then of course, when I finally did the research online and looked at the listing, which I like to get my own information before I look at listings, they were the same exact color numbering system as on my fan palette. So yeah, all the same paint. Just pick the layout that you like best. Thank you so much for watching. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this review. Let me know if you want to see a tutorial for this little scene here. I can't remember how long it took me to paint because I was watching TV when I was doing it. But we could definitely do that. It was fun. Maybe bigger. We could do it bigger. Have more fun in the sky. I don't know. You can let me know. And that's about it. Thanks for watching. Until next time, happy crafting!